Start recording. Found it. Took me a minute, but we got there. Okay, so thanks everybody for coming today. This is the first Webmasters webinar. Hopefully you got your email talking about outlining what we were going to talk about today. And really these webinars are just time for us to dedicate to our websites together and learn a few user tips, some refreshers on some skills that are important, and then leave time at the end to ask questions, maybe to work on some websites right away. I see that you guys have all muted yourselves, but I think at the end you can definitely unmute yourself and we can have a conversation. So in the meantime, while I go through a few things here to get us started, please type your questions or any comments you have into the chat box so we can talk about those along the way. I want this to be participatory, hands-on as much as we can. So I do have a few things to talk about first. First, we do have that email list. It's the web services. And I've been emailing you guys occasionally if there's important things, updates, updates from Divi. But please know that if you have questions about doing something on your website, that you can definitely send an email out to that list and ask the whole group. Because like we said in all of our conversations together with each and every library, I made sure to state that we're in this project together. Because there's so many websites, it's both of our jobs to know how to use the websites, right? You guys need to be able to edit basic content. And as I'm saying this, you might be panicking, but there's no reason to panic because there's all of us here to help each other. It's not just me helping all of you, it's all of us in this together, right? And if I suddenly break a leg and I'm home from a week and you have a desperate question, please feel free to email that email list, right? And also remember that you can always email me, and I'm going to try to get to it as fast as I can. Okay, so I wanted to touch on a few things behind the scenes of a website, okay? So this is a website that I whipped up yesterday for Withy, and as you guys know, I always say focus on the content, not on the design, right? So let's take a peek behind the curtain, right? You'll see that there is a menu, a logo, a search box, some social media over here on the right. This is a blog slider. You can see some of my test slides are in there just to fill space so people can get an idea of what's going on. Beneath it, I have this goal of having a new adult fiction list and a new teen fiction list and having these linked to your more, you guys use more, and in more you have those hot lists of new teen books, this is what I'm talking about, new quick lists, so new items, that kind of thing. I'm also working on this kind of project for WBLS. Kyle Schultz is talking with the bid committee already this morning about making this kind of thing possible. So, excuse me, so having images of new adult fiction or new teen fiction, being able to click here and go to the catalog to search those, right? Okay, so let's take a tour behind the scenes. And I'm saying behind the scenes because the visual builder is not reliable. I've received many emails of people saying, "Oh, I deleted something I worked so hard on," and it turns out those people had been editing in the visual builder, and I'm going to show you why the visual builder is unreliable. The visual builder, even though it's come a long way since its creation, is very sensitive. You need to know where you're clicking and why you're clicking, and you need to know what the colors mean. And yes, the colors do indicate something. A blue color means a section. A green teal means a module, right? A purple means a full width section. What else is there? Gray is individual modules. So, sorry, the green teal is a row and the gray is a module. So that alone shows you that you can get mixed up pretty quickly. And then also, if you wanted to add something in here, you have to find out where you're supposed to add it, right? So you have to, make your best guess on what to click if you have no experience with the visual builder, right? Other things. some of the code that I've entered for your respective search bars disappears. So it's unreliable in how it looks when you're in the visual builder. So you can't rely on that. And just because, I notice these things, there's a lot more space in between the social media icons and the search box than there are when you're not in the visual builder. The other thing to mention, if you look down towards the bottom of the screen where my cursor is moving kind of erratically, is this purple function box. If I click on it, then there's a save button. But if you don't save your work and you exit the visual builder without saving, your work is gone. And even then, if you do some work and you hit exit visual builder, sometimes it will give you an option to save and exit or discard and exit. So if you're not paying attention to what options it's giving you, you're going to lose your work, right? Now, a couple of good things that the visual builder is good for are, fixing spelling errors. Like if I had this as Wednesday, I could just click in there and make it Thursday, right? But again, I have to remember to go down here and save and then exit the visual builder. The other thing is a lot of the options when you're trying to edit a module are not readily, you can't really see them as easy as you could as if you were working in the classic editing. See how all these boxes are kind of shrunk up and they look different, but when you open them, the features become more familiar. Hopefully you've been able to poke around behind the scenes. So all of the editing options that are usually in a full screen capacity on the back end are shrunk up into this accordion, which is fine if you know where you're going. But again, the visual builder, see, so I didn't press save, and it says save and exit or discard and exit. I'm going to hit save and exit. And you'll notice this is the first time that it has offered me that. So that's a problem, right? Okay, so let's take a tour behind the scenes. I want to stress that all modules should have labels on them. And I'm going to pick on myself on Amory because on Withy because I built this website yesterday and I did not build the services page. So I started building a services page without putting admin labels. And what I have found when I go to some of the websites is they're full of these text, 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 text. Well, that's not really helpful when you're editing on the back end. You don't know what's in this text box. Maybe you've memorized it, but that's not going to be helpful if you were ever to break your leg and somebody had to go onto the website and edit something, right? So when you're putting modules into your website, you always, always, always put in this admin label with what's inside the box, right? So we're on the services page. These are library services. I'm going to make an admin label. What do we have in this box? Well, look at that. We have a Badger link box. So in the admin label, I'm going to put Badger link. So on your website pages, when you're editing, and if you see all these labeled, that's because I've gone through most of your websites and labeled everything. But again, it's important to label everything because, if you need help with something and you want me to be editing it and you want it done quickly, it's best practice to have everything labeled. Okay. Because you guys know your website's best, but as soon as I get in there, sometimes I'm at a loss if you have a whole lot of content, right? Okay, the other thing I wanted to talk about is sometimes there's a need to edit the header and footer, right? So I'm going to tell you how I built the headers and footers and menus so that it makes more sense to you. Let's start with the footer. That's pretty easy. In the contact area, we put the library's contact information. Social media follows. I add in whatever social media you have. I usually put the hours on the bottom. And then I add a search bar. And this search bar specifically is searching the library's website, not the catalog. And that's why I put this placeholder text there. It's searching the text in your website. If you have something shrunk up in an accordion, it will not appear here. Now, if it's the title of an accordion, it will show up in your search results. But this search bar on the bottom of your page is meant for searching your library website for content, not your catalog. Okay. So how I created this is I made a standard section and I build it on in a different area, and there's way less functionality here. But what I did in the Divi library is I will I'm going to go there and show you. Okay, here is where you go to the Divi options, and then you go Divi library, and here's where I created a header, a footer, and a menu. Now you'll see over here on the right that it says they're all global, and that means that once you build this module and you put it onto each of your pages, you can edit it in one place and it will update in all of those other places. So when you're playing around on your website and you want to edit your menu, don't delete your menu and create a new one. Work within the menu that's established so that it will change across all of your pages, right? Because if you delete the menu off of your main page and you create a new menu that is not global, then all of the other pages on your website still have that old menu that you did not like. So if you do not like your menu or your footer or your header, edit the green selection, edit the green section, so then it will edit across all of the pages instead of deleting and creating one, right? Okay, now a special note, anything that says code in the menu, in the module, you should not mess with, because if I click into it, you'll see that Gus built special code to create the search boxes. So the search box that you see on this page is just code. So if you monkey and whoops and delete one semicolon, this whole thing could be messed up or broken, right? Good thing is I have a copy of the code, so I can slip in and put it in there easily. But be careful or do not touch any code that you see. And for if-list libraries, this is what your search box looks like, and it's also built of code. Now, before I go on a tangent, I just want to mention that I am working on the design of this for WVLS libraries, and Kara Hart from Neilsville already changed the color herself, so it's doable, my friends. But I kind of want to build a more design-friendly, a more friendly design, because this search box was built for the WVLS website, and it might not suit everyone's website. So that's just a side note. So now that we have gone through how headers and footers and menus are built globally, let's move on to some more basic aspects here. I do want to review the makeup of a website. The blue area is a section, the green area is a row, and the gray area is a module. So keep those terms in mind, because sometimes I'm not sensitive and I speak so quickly and I assume everybody knows what I'm talking about, because I deal with your guys' websites every day, whereas you might deal with your website, once a week or once every 2 weeks. And that's okay, because it's my job to be learning about the websites and keeping up to date about these things. The other thing to mention is spacing. So spacing on a web page, if you can visualize, this is the logo, this is the social media follow and search box, this is the menu, this is the post slider, and beneath it we had those new adult fiction and new teen fiction. And you'll see that I have them in separate sections, right? Separate sections. And that's because some of the new features that Divi comes out with are particular to sections, rows, and modules, right? So if you want this section to have a certain look, then you need to separate the content from the rest of the content on the page. Because if you wanted to change the way that this area looked and you just clicked edit with this row within the same section, then it's not behaving. So if I wanted to make this area, the background behind this post slider to be a dark blue, and then I wanted this background to stay white, anything in this section will be dark blue. Okay, so keeping your content separate is good for some things and not good for other things. Now, I'll give you an example of that. So like I mentioned, I was building a services page for Withy. Thank you, Withy, for letting me use your page. So here's a classic issue in spacing. When I go onto the page, I see services and library, and I assume that since there's such a large gap that I don't need to scroll down because there's nothing there. Well, oops, there totally is something there. Now let's adjust the spacing. So you can see that I have one section with the services title and the library, and then a second section for the modules for BadgerLink, Ancestry, and Overdrive. Well, I'm going to do a shortcut and edit in the Visual Builder, but before we get there, I'm going to show you what I will be adjusting. So in the Classic Builder, you can go to Design, and then in spacing, you can reduce the spacing between the sections by doing it manually, right? So you can type that in. Now you'll have to remember that each section, row, and module all have their own spacing settings, which can get very frustrating when you just want to adjust one thing, the spacing in between this one thing, right? And you have to deal with all three settings, right? By going into each one, going to Design, and then scrolling to the padding and margin spacing, right? So here is where the Visual Builder is handy, but again, you have to be careful with what you're clicking. So I'm going to adjust the spacing on this page. And this is just one of the new inclusions in the Divi update packages. And you can see that sometimes this opaque green is showing up. That is actually adjusting the spacing that I had to adjust manually just in the former screen. So remember, every module and section, and every section, row, and module has those spacing options. So I could potentially, and on top and on bottom. So there's 6 places where I can adjust the spacing, right? Okay, so now we're getting pretty down to it. And again, you can fine tune this even more by going into the Classic editor. So now you'll see that compared to just now, I can see everything that's on the page, right? Just simply by reducing the settings, right? The spacing settings. And that's how I'm just tweaking around here. I'm just playing with what I want. Now, remember I had these in 2 different sections, right? And I'm going to show you a couple of the new features. There was one of the newest features was an update introducing color and filter effects and blend modes. And so what that means is, if I kind of want to make some kind of division here, granted there's going to be more content on this page, but you'll just have to humor me. I could go to the function, this is one of the new features, is go to the divider and kind of pick a different design, and you'll see what appears when I do that, right? So it's kind of fun. And what you can do with that is adjust it, change the color, which is not that fabulous. You can change the height so you can cover the whole space with that fun design, right? You can kind of flip it around and do what you like. What else? Let's play around in here. This just rounds the borders, and you'll see that over here the corner rounded. I don't really like that. I'm a clean cut gal, so I like pointies. What else in here? Spacing, again, you can adjust it yourself. Let's play around in the dividers a little bit more. Sometimes I like to add ones that add like an eyesight line. Meaning I just kind of want it to be suggestive that you can scroll down the page. Just a hint of color, even sometimes, is helpful to indicate a difference in content. Now, that's very slight, and I would suggest playing around in the dividers more. But you get the idea. You can make it a little bit more sassy if you want to. I'm going to put this nasty color here just so I remember that I need to change it. The other thing to note that this is demonstrating is if you have an icon, the best bet, the best design is to have a PNG with a transparent background so you don't get these aggressive transition lines, right? You can see overdrive might not be the best place, this area might not be the best place for overdrive because it is a PNG. Excuse me. So I'm going to move it over here, and I'm going to move Badger Link over here. So you can see how it is important to pay attention to what file types you're adding to the website. You know, overdrive works best over here because it has a transparent background, and if I put it on blue, you wouldn't be able to see it, right? So those are just some examples. And remember, I'm going to hit save. And since I adjusted the spacing on this page, it's important to know that you have to go to every other page and adjust that spacing on those pages as well. Otherwise, they'll stay different, right? But I'm not going to go through and do that right now. Lastly, so the point of me playing around with these dividers is it's important to pay attention to the Divi updates because that's how I found out about being able to adjust the spacing and the fun divider lines, and for images you can do the same thing. So like on this image, I would like to have it kind of pop off of the page a little bit so I can adjust the framing that it has, right? I can pick all that right here. Let's see what this one does. I don't really like that one. Right. So I'm just clicking around, and you might, you know, I was talking to someone today and I was playing around with this, and they said, "Isn't this cool?" And they said, "Well, I didn't even notice." So maybe it's noticeable to you, but I think that you're the one that has to love the design, right? So, so just pay attention to new features that are coming through in the emails that we send to each other, so you can learn more about new fun things you can try for your website. Okay, so lastly, I do want to talk about accessibility because accessibility can be overwhelming when it comes to web presence. Again, this is a team effort, or excuse me, creating websites is a team effort between me and yourself, or you and I, because accessibility can come down to very basic factors, and it can also be super technical. So start with something that's basic and that you can tackle and work your way up, right? Now there's other tools that can help you get started with accessibility. But let's start with the easy stuff. You know, like I said before, every conversation that I have with someone about starting a new website starts in accessibility. Using the correct colors, you need to have enough contrast between your main text and the web page so that people who have hearing issues, have sight issues, can read the page easily enough. Yellow text is not good. Light green text is not good. Believe it or not, blue is not great. So, and this is an internet-wide issue where websites default to having blue as the link. But guess what? In our theme customizer, there is a way to change the color of permalinks. And we just need to find that in these settings and things. So body link color, we can set it to purple, and there's purple. So I wouldn't recommend that. But that's just something that you'll have to sort out yourself, right? So the default is blue, but I think it's important to note that blue is not an accessible color for the most part. So thinking about that. is something every website needs to do. So keep in mind when you're like on Target or one of your other favorite websites, see what they use for their links, and maybe that's something you could incorporate to your website. Again, text contrast is big, so maybe this gray isn't the best color, but guess what? This gray was the default that this web service gives you. So a lot of times I'll go in here and manually change the default text color, the default font, general settings, typography, body text color I usually set to black. And you'll see it's a slight difference, but it plays a major part, right? Header text color I'll also set to black, and even just subtle changes like that will make a big difference. Again, I'm not just being a stickler when it comes to labeling your pieces on the back end, but that adds to accessibility for screen readers. When you are navigating down a page, this page is not a great example. Let's see if I can find a better example. Friends of the library. So a lot of these websites are still in the early stages here, so you'll have to forgive me. Maybe, okay, here's one. Another aspect of accessibility is headers and header sizes and how text flows down a page. So you'll notice that on this page, this title of the page is larger than the second section. And that's how it should go, because the website users using a screen reader can only do so because the screen reader follows the path of the largest to smallest text size, right? So if you have everything on one page marked as the biggest text, then the screen readers aren't going to know where to follow to read the text, right? What are some other things? Okay, so on your About Us page or on your history page, you have images, right? Friends of the library. Let's see, does Turtle Lake? Let's go to Turtle Lake because I know that they have some pictures. Every website should have pictures, by the way, on every single page. So About Us. About Us for Turtle Lake has some wonderful pictures. Now let's go in there and see if they have them accessible. And when I say that, I mean every single image on your website, whether that's a logo or a photo, needs to have. I'm trying to move this box here. It needs to have this information filled out. Alternate text is how a screen reader can describe a picture or image to a person who's using a screen reader. So in this alternative text, I would say Turtle Lake Public Library entrance. You know, something as simple as that is way better than leaving that alternative text blank. And just to be safe, I put that description in every single place. So there's no missing that information for screen readers. A side note here, for captions, caption is what will display on the screen. So if you don't want a caption of your image on the screen, don't put anything in the caption, right? But always, always, always have text and the alternative text data point when you're putting images and pictures on your page. Now, a way to get that accomplished, if you already have a website full of pictures without that alternative text, which you shouldn't, you can go to Media Library, and you can click on every image and enter that information in. So you don't have to hunt through each and every page. You can just go to every image and put that information in. Here's another one of my blank stories. And see, sometimes I'm so silly that I just copy everything in there, but alternative text should really say everything that is in your slide, right? If everything was perfect in the world, every single picture would have an alternative text that includes all of the text in the picture. So I hope that's making sense to you. So that's accessibility basics. The other thing to note is there's a couple tools out there to help you get started. So the Wave Accessibility tool is wonderful in that you can take the URL from the page that you're on and plug it into the Wave Accessibility tool, and it'll tell you things that you should consider changing on your page. So it's saying, hey, I need alternative text for this photo. How neat is that, right? I need alternative text for this photo. Otherwise, everything is looking good. Oh, here's something. It says a form control does not have a corresponding label. So we need labels on everything, right? So, and on the left side of the Wave Accessibility tool, it'll tell you how severe the warnings are, right? So, and of course, code is always going to give you troubles, because if you add descriptors into the code, that descriptor is going to show up. So we have to find another way to label that as a coded aspect. So maybe in the code admin label, you can add more information like search box code for more library system, something like that. When in doubt, more information is best, right? Now, this is actually the Withy website, so I'm going to take that off because we are not part of the more system. We are the WPLS library system. So the Wave Accessibility tool is a way to get started by evaluating each page one at a time and adjusting headers and things like that. You can also search for the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. Wikipedia, believe it or not, has a wonderful page to help you get started that has more, that has higher, it has progressively more technical accessibility methods to be using. So now I'm going to open it up to you guys for questions. We have about 25 minutes left for questions. Questions being, questions for the group, questions for me. I can make a quick edit on your website. Just something to show the group, even something that you thought was cool. So type in your questions here or unmute yourself, and let's open it up for discussion. I hope this was helpful. So these meetings are made for conversation and just a quick check-in. This isn't meant to be multiple hours long. It's supposed to be a check-in and maybe time to refresh some skills. Does anybody have any questions or things they'd like me to take a look at on their websites? And well, maybe just for interest, we can take a tour on. Let's go to the Neilsville website because Kara has been doing wonderful things and I hope you don't mind, Kara, if we visit your website, but she's been building and putting extra elements on her website, so I did want to point out that Kara made a 360 library tour that you can use Google Cardboard glasses to view. She made a children's one, an adult one. That's super cool. Clark County works together closely, so she put the Clark County libraries on her website. Up across the top, she has a login spot for the catalog. New materials, she went and dug up a module setting to put new materials in here. It looks like she's just waiting to put book covers in there. Awesome. Events and programs, she has a page for each one. There are also calendars that you can use. I suggest using Google Cimple Calendar, and I can help with that if you need to. Anybody have any comments? Services? Kara went about it a little bit more differently. She had her library, Neillsville Public Library, has the 3D printers, so there's this page dedicated to that. Voter information is huge. Kara does a newsletter that she linked to this awesome slider. Let's take a tour on Amory. Amory, I just started building, and we're still in the early stages. I see a question coming in. Ooh, does Google Calendar allow for reoccurring events? Could you show an example? Okay, so I'm going to go to my calendar because I use Google Cimple Calendar for the WVLS website, and I can show you that. So here's our calendar. It's not anything sexy, but it gets the job done, right? So how I do that is I go to my calendars, and I have a, let's just make an event. So I'm going to make an event, and this is called a test for fun. And I'm going to go into options, and I don't want it on my calendar. I want it on WVLS Web. So I have labeled one WVLS Web that goes to the website, and I can say that it does repeat weekly on Wednesdays, or I can do, weekly on Thursdays, and you can, like, let's say you have a story time series, right? So you can say it ends on, well, let's pretend this is the fall session, and it's going to end on December 15th or December 20th before Christmas. And so we'll have a series of 13 story times on the calendar. Now that means they're all going to show up as the same story time, right? So you can have your story time description, but the series would all have the same description. Now, if you wanted a different story time description in there for each one, I wonder if you could save. Okay, so we have the test for fun. I'm going to go to next week, and here's the test for fun. I'm going to edit this, and you'll see, Laura, that I find out I learn a lot just by trying things. So I have no shame in trying all that kind of stuff. Just seeing what's out there. So okay, so I'm going to change the story time description, and I'm going to hit save. Oh, so here's this. We just discovered that you can create a story time or any kind of series, and then once you've created the series that occurs all the time, go into one of those single events and change the description. So you could have that. That's pretty awesome. So I'm going to go back to today, and I'm going to delete this series. Otherwise, my coworkers will be super confused. And I'm going to delete this. Okay, so you guys can see how busy my week is going to be, right? Let's see if there's any more questions going on. And it looks like I double added the PLA conference. National Library Week is in here. The STEAM Youth Services Workshop is going to be in here. Laura, does that answer your question? Hopefully that gets to the end of the questions here. Sorry you asked that near the beginning. How would you embed it into the website, though? Ooh, good question. So the other thing with websites is because there's a million, zillion, bajillion plugins, I can't be the master of all the plugins. But I am recommending Cimple Calendar because they have wonderful examples in their support network. They regularly update it, and there's a million bazillion downloads. So you asked how to embed it. In the view details, let's start from the beginning. Once you add your plugin and you activate it, there's a settings area where you need a Google API that I can give you. And then in your calendars, you need to set up a calendar to share. And then I've only set it up for mine, but what I did is I went to the view details, I went to installation, and then I followed the setup guide step by step, and it was really nice. So if you guys need the API to get this Cimple Calendar or any Google Calendar plugin or any regular calendar plugin, just let me know. And I'm going to show you how many calendars there are, because I know that, gosh, what's that library? Somerset uses a different calendar. There's the events calendar that's popular. What's this? Event calendar, WD, booking calendar. There's all kinds of calendars that you can use. So I suggest you guys go out and see which ones would work best for you. But again, I would really suggest using the Cimple Calendar. So Laura said use the events calendar now, but it doesn't allow for reoccurring events. You'll be switching. Okay. So any other questions there? It's about 1:43. I think the calendar is one of the biggest questions. And what I like to do, essentially what you're going to do is create a page, and then you're going to embed the code for the calendar, and I'll show you what that looks like. So once you go through the settings in the plugin and you set up your calendar by following the directions, there is I just put in a text module, and I added the code that it required, and I just made it a calendar page. How easy is that? So here's the logo and search. And then on my page, it's a little different because I hid the logo and search bar, so I can't edit that here. So now I see a question, is it a widget? It is not. Like I said, you would create a page and you would embed the code. And that the plugin how-to settings goes through all of that. And I'll show you again. So here's Cimple Calendar. You can go to View Details, Installation, and it has a video. And I love videos because I just go along and I follow step by step. All right. Okay. So it's 1:44. Kara, were you still planning on going live in April? And Turtle Lake went live in February. Somerset was live in January or February. So if you guys are ever curious about what's going on with websites, I have all the resources you need under Member Services on the WVLS website. There's website resources. All right, so I have information on domain names. I'm going to post this webinar under the webinar area over here. I'll probably update the list for the libraries using Divi WordPress. Mostly, I put examples here for websites that are finished. So even if you hear from another library that is working on a website, I might not have them on our page because they might be in the middle of building their website. So, okay. All right. Well, I'm going to call for questions or comments again. Can you guys enter your preferred date for a date that we'll all work together in May on our websites? It's going to be one of 2 co-work days. I haven't set a location yet. I'm going to look at the libraries using the website service and try to find a library in the middle distance for everyone to travel to. And we'll all be in the same room. We'll cover a few things like we just did, and then we're going to work on our websites together and ask each other questions and finalize things. And we'll do that again probably in November when things slow down. I would prefer not to do it in November due to weather, but hey, what can you do? There's a lot of other things going on. So if you can, write your preferred day of the week for for May that you would like to get together and work on websites. Mondays are usually not a great day. We're all playing catch up. So just write your preferred day of the week for a May togetherness work day. And let me just take a look and see when our next month is for a website webinar. And it looks like June is the next website webinar day. Did I hear someone gonna speak? And I thought I heard someone, but I don't. So wonderful. Okay, well that's all I have today, so I'll stick around for the last couple minutes here. Just enter into the chat or unmute yourself and ask me any questions, or maybe we can work on your website together. Just let me know. And in case you guys are just interested in watching some website work, I'm going to continue working on the Withy page that I was building for Withy, and I was working on their services page. So I'm going to go to their services page and I'm going to enable the visual builder, and I don't really like this background. So I'm just going to narrate what I'm working through. I don't really like this divider. That's not bad. Sometimes that's nicer. I like softening the color a little bit. And you can raise the divider height or not. The other cool thing with this is you can flip it. So it's like that. I like that. That's pretty cool. I kind of want to find one that's like that. And flip it. No, that's not very cool. Kind of like that. Makes the space a little bit more fun. Thanks for joining us today, everybody. Override ancestry badgering. Maybe Divi would go well here. Maybe something about class visits. Let's see what I put on the Amory page. I didn't have anything there. Let's see what we have on the Rhinelander page. Rhinelander, we're trying to adjust this back over. We made an icon spot in the middle of their page where we can click on search the catalog. Overdrive and ebooks will go to Overdrive. Research will go Badgerlink. Support your library. They have a whole bunch of donation stuff. Yes, like event calendar, we'll link that to their Cimple Calendar. They wanted a banner there that actually, where does that go to? Oh, they had their own new book release. And then they wanted a couple featured boxes on the bottom of the screen. What did they put in their services? Oh, WizCat. I want to steal WizCat for that other page. So what I'm doing is just stealing. And, you know, here's the visual builder in all its finest. And all I wanted was a admin label. There's that. I'm going to hit save. There's a space for them to put other things on here, like rocket languages or whatever. Amory, I might put these into some bullet points here. All right, so I think I am going to end the recording and keep on working work on this. Great. Thanks for joining me today.